When Donald Trump entered the race for presidency, many people saw his candidacy as a joke. In an interview with then-leader Jeb Bush, Jeb just sort of laughed when Trump was brought up, not really wanting to address him because he didn't see him as a serious contender. Things have changed a lot. Trump is now the frontrunner, and Jeb doesn't have that exclamation point after his name anymore. Now it's a frowning emoticon. What we can see here is what we can also see reflected in today's quotation by Rachel Field. "I've seen public opinion shift like a wind and put out the very fire it lighted." What Field is saying in this quotation is that public opinion drastically changes. What she means when she says that it shifts like a wind. She also says that people can change their mind, which is what she means when she says that this wind can put out the very fire it lighted. People are fickle, and public opinion is too. We can agree with what Field is saying, and what we can take away is that we must fight for what is right in spite of circumstances. Something that we can see to be true, first, because public opinion will drastically change at times, and second, because what is right does not change. First, we'll look at the fact that public opinion drastically changes at times, a reason that we must fight for what is right regardless of the circumstances. We can look first at the example of Chile under Augusto Pinochet, and then the example of Andrew Young and John Edwards. First, we'll look at the example of Chile under Augusto Pinochet. Pinochet took power in 1973 from the democratically elected socialist president, Salvador Allende. Pinochet was able to rise to power because many people had grown tired of Allende's rule. Public opinion soon drastically changed. While many people did not like Allende's socialist policies, they also didn't like Pinochet, who ran a military dictatorship to the hard right. What we can see here is that public opinion drastically changed. At first, people were opposing Allende. Then once Pinochet was in power, people were opposing him, showing that the right thing to do would have been to fight for a happy medium, to fight for the Chilean people when neither side would. Because as we can see, public opinion is apt to drastically change. We can also see this reflected through the example of Andrew Young and John Edwards. After John Edwards ran for president in the 2008 election, it turned out that one of his aides, Rielle Hunter, had gotten pregnant. While people suspected Edwards, his aide, Andrew Young, took the fall. And people saw Young as a bad man for cheating on his wife, but all in all it was okay because Edwards, the more prominent person, was not the father. Ultimately, it turned out that Edwards was the father, and Andrew Young had lied for him. Soon, Edward was very disliked and also went to prison for trying to silence Hunter. What we can take away here is that public opinion drastically changes. People hated Young one day and Edwards the next. What Andrew Young should have taken away is that he should have done what was right, said he was not the father, and realized that public opinion will drastically change, and that he should have done what was right regardless. A second thing we can look at, playing off the same theme, is the fact that what is right should not change, something we can see reflected through the veil of ignorance and the individual ethical model of challenge. First, we can look at the veil of ignorance. John Rawls, a 20th century American philosopher, came up with this philosophical theory that argues that all laws should be made without difference to the impact it would have on the person making the law. Basically, that people should be able to make non-biased decisions. This is what judges are supposed to use, but Rawls argues that lawmakers and any decision maker should use the veil of ignorance as well, so that all laws, regulations, and rules can be fair. What we can see here is that what is right should not change. Public opinion is, of course, apt to change over time. But the veil of ignorance would argue that people should do what is right because there is a general consensus that people should be able to agree on. Next, we can look at the individual ethical model of challenge. This is a theory by the philosopher Ronald Dworkin that argues that while a simple action, such as laughing at a racist joke, might not harm race relations at all, it does still have a negative impact because it breaks down our own moral fiber and negatively contributes to the cause overall. What we can see here is that what is right doesn't change, and that while public opinion on issues like race relations or other issues might change, and while we might not see it as a big deal to, for instance, laugh at a joke on the subject, what is right, in this case that racism is bad, does not change. And as we see through the veil of ignorance and the individual ethical model of challenge, we see that what is right does not change. Which leads us to look at the quotation again. "I've seen public opinion shift like a wind and put out the very fire it lighted," by Rachel Field. We see that we must fight for what is right in spite of circumstances, because public opinion drastically changes, but what is right does not change. As we saw in the example of the Republican nomination process, public opinion is apt to gradually shift. And sometimes things like Jeb get a bit less exciting.